What's up, card gamers? Hey guys, hope you are doing well. Today I want to tell you about just a completely horrible game that I played. This is an old retro video game from the Game Boy Color days. The name of the game is Monster Rancher Battle Card GB. What a title that is. Monster Rancher Battle Card GB. Like, can we add any more words and syllables into that? Anyway, awful game, and I'm going to tell you why in this episode. But if you heard that Monster Rancher and that sounds familiar to you, perhaps you are really old like I am, and you'll remember Monster Rancher. If you go back to the late 90s, and at this time, Pokemon is just destroying the world in terms of profits. Pokemon cartoon, the manga series, the trading card game are all just selling like hotcakes. And there were sort of some other series that tried to copycat and do something similar to Pokemon, but it really wasn't as good. And so maybe you remember Digimon was one of those, and Monster Rancher was one of those. And so Monster Rancher actually had also a collectible card game that they tried to roll out, and I think they did like one set, and that was it. But it wasn't particularly memorable. However, they also came out with this Game Boy Color game, Monster Rancher Battle Card GB. This was about a year after Pokemon trading card game came out on Game Boy Color, so tough act to follow. But here's the weird thing. This Game Boy game does not follow the same cards and gameplay as the Monster Rancher collectible card game. So that was an interesting design choice. I'm not exactly sure why they did it that way, but ultimately, man, I want to tell you guys. Well, first of all, let me tell you about the game. If you want to torture yourself, you can find this game on eBay for around $10. I'm just going to save you $10 and say, do not get it. Even for comedic value, it's just not worth any type of investment. In this game, you do have a team of 3 monsters, and your deck consists of cards, either offense or defense, which revolve around those monsters. So if you have a character, Golem, for example, if you have Golem, or there's a character who is a dinosaur named Dino. Yeah, you can tell they got really creative with these names. Then you'll have defense cards for Dino. There'll be something like Dodge or Roll, but it'll have a picture of Dino on the card. So, and then the attack moves the same way. It'll be Stomp, Slash, things like that, but it'll be pictures of Dino on the card, and then you'll have the card name of whatever the attack is, the offense card. And those cards all revolve around those characters. So if you want to change the characters, you have to change the cards that revolve around them as well. I will tell you guys, I'm going to take a quick break, and then I'll come back. I'll tell you what things I liked, which is hardly anything. And basically, this is going to be an example of how to not make a good card game. So I'll tell you guys about that in just a second. Let me say this about Monster Rancher Battle Card GB. The graphics are good. The graphics are actually pretty good. There's a good use of color. The card art is pretty good for the era of games we're talking about. Game Boy Color is pretty old. And so I was surprised at the level of polish with the graphics. The monsters will show up on the screen. So when you get into a battle, you have the 3-on-3 with your 3 monsters versus their 3. And when you perform attacks, they'll jump forward and perform their move, and different attacks have different animations. It's actually pretty nuanced and pretty good graphics. That's what I liked about the game. There's a lot that I did not like about the game. This is a lesson on how to not make a card game. This Monster Rancher Battle Card GB. All right. First is this. When you come into the card game, there's no tutorial whatsoever. You just start the game and you walk around talking to characters and you go on your way, which I believe the storyline, man, I should have got some translation of the text for you guys, but I think the storyline is that kids play the card game because the actual monsters are too dangerous for them to play with. And so adults train the actual monsters, but the kids play the card game. That was the storyline explanation of why you're playing a card game. And so I can't even tell you really the point of the game. But anyway, there's no tutorial. So this is a card game where they don't actually tell you how to play the card game. You just jump into a game and start playing and just figure it out on your own. You say, well, how hard can that be? And especially, this is made for kids. So I said, okay, I jump in. You have these cards. It gives you a deck to start off with. And then you get into a battle pretty early on. And it says, for me to play cards, I have to be able to pay. And I'm like, okay, how do I pay? And it says, how many cards would you like to keep? And I'm like, keep? I don't know. What's the alternative? Like, it does, nothing is explained. And then it goes to the next phase of the game, which is called, or it says, to play any card, you have to have a requirement of such and such amount of guts. This card costs 2 guts to play. Guts? Really? Okay, I'm thinking this is like land or mana, and in other games like energy, maybe they called it guts because they can't call it energy, so they called it guts. Not what I would have chosen, but whatever, they called it guts. The next step of the game is called the in guts stage. I'm not making this up. In guts. ENGUTS. Huh? In guts. Who decided that this was a good idea? I can imagine there had to be like one guy working on the game. And maybe there's this, like, his boss comes in and he's like, yeah, so what did you decide to call that step where you invest cards so that you can play more cards? Oh, yeah, he's like, well, we called the cards, they're not called energy, they're called guts. And the boss says, yeah, that's right. So what did you call this? He's like, yeah, so we can't say main phase because, other games say main phase, and we can't say upkeep. So here's what we decided to call it. In guts. Who shook their head and raised their hand and said, yeah, that's good, let's go with in guts? What? Anyway. In guts, whatever. And guts made it to the cutting room floor and survived somehow. So when you're in the in guts phase, you are actually choosing cards from your hand that you discard from your hand. And this is what gives you guts in order to be able to play cards. It's just all very wacky. Another example of the lack of polish is just a horrible translation of text. You can tell that this is a game that came out in Japanese and then maybe got translated to English, and they didn't do a very good job. And it's very confusing because of it. The translation is so bad. One other thing with the game. It's just bland. The most exciting aspect of card games, in my opinion, is something that draws you in. You see the characters or you see the world, and there's something interesting about the card art or what you're able to do in terms of massive attacks and things like that. You want to see something interesting that draws you into the game. Everything in this game, and specifically in the card game portion, is so bland. The names of the attack cards are literally slap, headbutt. The names of the characters are literally Dino, a dinosaur named Dino. Everything is completely bland. There's no, compare this, and remember that you're comparing this to Pokemon. Would you rather play with a Dino that can perform a slap, or a Charizard that can do a flame burst? I mean, it's a no-brainer. Come on. Who saw slap and headbutt and decided that that was okay? If those were the worst examples and there was other, more exciting moves that you could do, you're comparing to, Hydro Pump. And things like roll, slap, punch are just not exciting. One other thing with the card game, I feel like, man, really one other thing? Yeah, another thing. There's no real meaningful interactions. Since every card is tied to one of your 3 characters, you either have a defense card for one of your 3 guys, so say it's Dino, and my opponent is attacking Dino. The only way for me to get out of that attack is if I have a defense card that's specifically designated for the character Dino. And if I don't, then I have to take that attack. And that defense card is completely meaningless if I do have one for him and they don't attack him, then that defense card does nothing for me. And so I always just found myself pitching any defense cards in guts, because there's no point in keeping, or very little point in keeping those. They may not even attack that character. Uh, what that kind of does in the 3-on-3 battles too is, man, if you can take out one of the characters, it's almost impossible to come back from being down 3-2, because a third of your deck is now useless. If Dino dies, then every card you have that was assigned to Dino is now completely useless. You can't use a Dino attack for one of your other characters. Golem can't do Dino attacks. Golem can't do a headbutt if it has Dino's picture on the headbutt. Only if it has Golem's picture on the headbutt. So a third of your deck becomes useless after one of your characters dies, which you might not even have a defense card in your hand to prevent that from happening. So it's just a one-sided battle, no meaningful interactions. It's just not good. I'll just review that real quick for you. The graphics were good with this game. There's no tutorial. It is very confusing and hard to sort of learn how to play. Once you do learn how to play, you see how unpolished and unfun and bland it is, without meaningful interaction. And games basically equate to almost like rock, paper, scissors. I'm not even really sure if it's that amount of depth. What did I give this game, for the sake of this isn't really a review, but what would I give this game out of 10? Well, I would give it a 1.5 for two reasons. You say, man, really? You gave it a 1.5? Well, I give it 1 point for good graphics, and I would give it half a point for the bad translation being so bad that it actually made me laugh a couple of times. So 1.5 out of 10. I'll tell you this, though. Don't waste any time or money on this game. This is actually a good lesson on how card games should not be made. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Y'all have a great day. We'll see you next time.